Egypt's COP27 is a follow-up to the Paris Accord. At the opening statement of COP21 in Paris, the French President François Hollande had stated that the agreement would be successful if it achieved a target of 2°C with an aspiration to maintaining warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, that the agreement would be mandatory in some respect, and that it would mobilize all sectors of society. Since the accord was concluded in 2015, it did not meet exactly all these three requirements, so the following COPs are basically working around those three main elements. Fundamentally, this follows the warming effect that has been detected over the past 200 years, in which increasing carbon dioxide accumulation into the atmosphere is related through computer modeling to increased levels of warming. Going forward, since we cannot predict the amount of CO2 emitted and that will accumulate into the atmosphere, we have upper and lower bounds. These are representative concentration pathways. Each one is associated with a level of CO2 that will accumulate into the atmosphere by a certain period of time. Going forward, those RCPs, representative concentration pathways, give us a good idea of what an aspiration of 1.5 degrees mean, what a target of 2 degrees Celsius mean. They also give us an idea of what is the impact of all the contributions made by all the parties to the convention. Under the current understanding, this leads to a warming of 2.7 degrees Celsius. So now under COP27, the world goes to Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh under the presidency of the Egyptian President El-Sisi. And Egyptian diplomacy, which is extremely capable, has its work cut out for it. When you look at the first question, the mandatory agreement, the issue becomes, do we turn those NDCs into mandatory commitments? There's a small issue here because developing countries approach mitigation, climate change mitigation, as a co-benefit of adaptation. If they were to do more mitigation efforts, they would require more funding and even some level of technology transfer from the industrialized countries. Mobilization of all sectors of society is a bit tricky because it would involve a carbon budget issue. This raises two questions. For the developing world, carbon budget implies what some say carbon colonialism, because the industrialized countries have already used 80% of what would be estimated to be the carbon budget for a 2 degree Celsius world. This means that the developing world would still have to develop under only the 20% remaining budget, which will limit its development. The second implication is for the developed world, the industrialized countries, if they're going to limit their carbon emissions, this would require an implication of carbon credits, maybe even personal carbon credits linked to what's being talked about now as a central bank digital currency. Finally, the implication of the dual goal is different whether we're going to a target of 2 degrees Celsius or an aspiration of 1.5 degrees Celsius. If we go to a target of these 2 degrees Celsius, this would mean net zero emissions in the industrialized nations. 1.5 degrees Celsius, this would require a certain level of geoengineering. Geoengineering will show us that it's around RCP3, which will require us to remove carbon from the atmosphere or shield the Earth from incoming solar radiation. The target of 2 degrees Celsius would mean net zero, which will require considerable effort into industrialized countries. Thank you for your 2 minutes and see you in the next one.